Can you give me your name
Jamie George.
and some of your background? You're a veteran.
I'm a veteran. I was in the Army. I joined in 1991. I was a medic, and I served at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, spent some time in Honduras and Panama, went to Korea for a year, and ended up at Madigan Army Hospital at Fort Lewis, Washington, and I got out in '99.
I have a friend whose son was a Green Beret, and he was stationed in Honduras during the troubles in Nicaragua.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been fluent in Spanish, so I know what he did, but he says he can't say if he went into Nicaragua or not.
No, I've talked to a few of them that went in and said they can't really say anything. But Honduras was probably the most fun I ever had. That was a great time. It was a joint task force, base, and I worked in the trauma center there. And we'd do missions out into the civilians, and it was great. That was a lot of fun.
What town in Honduras?
Comiagua.
I'm not familiar with that.
It was just a little town.
Near Tegucigalpa? Or?
It was, well, depending on the day, really. It could take you anywhere from 2 to 8 hours to get to Tegucigalpa. That was an interesting place. Everybody communicated with their horns.
Now, my wife and I worked in South America for almost a year, and we shipped our car back from, our Land Cruiser back from Colombia to Puerto Cortes in Honduras.
Oh.
The big banana port.
Mm-hmm.
I got really sick of bananas in the 3 weeks we waited.
Oh man, that was the best part, is the mangoes. I never had so many mangoes. Mango in Wyoming, and at that time it cost you $5 for one mango, and I got down there and you could get 10 of them for $1.
So you were a medic,
Mm-hmm.
and you said you were in surgery?
I have been in, yes, I worked in surgery. I worked in a little bit of everything. I spent a lot of time in the motor pool. I was motor pool medic for a lot. When I was in Korea, I was in an ambulance unit, so I spent a lot of time in the field. I had my expert field medical badge that I got when I was in Oklahoma, and I was a proctor in Korea. So I spent several months up on the border as an instructor for the expert field medical badge.
So you were on the DMZ?
And yes, I was. Panmunjom.
So you did some hippotherapy?
I started out at, well, I worked as a vet tech for many years, and so I have a lot of equine and bovine experience. I also did the high school rodeo, and my grandfather was a farrier, so I grew up with horses, and I ended up at Promise Ranch, actually, due to community service, and then just stayed because I went what I knew, and it was good to get back with the horses.
So you haven't actually experienced the hippotherapy?
I've never done it for myself, no. I started as a volunteer, and then when I started is when they were working on the veterans group, and so then became a part of that.
So what is the veterans program? How does it work?
Well, right now it's still kind of in the beginning infancy of it. There's a group of us that are learning about the hippotherapy as far as we will start helping other veterans. We're just slowly trying to build it up. We spend a lot of time visiting mostly, and then we spend about an hour with the horses and get instruction on a wide variety of techniques with the horses, and for a lot of us it's just therapy, just being there. It's a peaceful time.
So you have a number of medical issues yourself?
Yes, I do. I got 60% disability. I have a bad neck injury and a hip injury, and I have nerve damage in my leg. And
is that from your service?
It is, yeah. Yeah, actually I was setting up a field hospital, and I was running through a tent, dragging a big piece of tent with me, and when you set up the field hospital, you only put the tin up so far so you can run the electrical around the top of the frame, and I was running through and I did a header into a crossbeam and really kind of messed up my neck pretty bad and gave myself a pretty good head injury, and then just from wearing the LBE and everything, I got nerve damage in my leg, and then I've developed a few other autoimmune diseases and medical problems since then, so, you know.
You joined the club.
Well, that's just it. Yeah, everybody has medical. I mean, you don't get out of it not having something. Just how you learn to live with it.
About my neuropathy and other problems,
Mm-hmm.
pre-Parkinson's, and he's a little older than I am, and he said, just learn to live with it. You're getting older.
Yeah, it's so hard in the beginning because, you know, you get used to being able to do so many things. And when it gets to where it takes you 2 hours in the morning to get moving because everything, you know, is stiffened up and seized up and you don't have the strength in your hands that you used to have. You can't run like you used to do, and it gets frustrating, but it is really just kind of life.
So how does the Veterans Program work at Promise Ranch?
Well, right now what we do is we meet on Wednesday evenings at 6 o'clock for a couple hours, and it's kind of, just show up and we sit around and we have to have our visit time, and everybody talks for a while, and then we get out the horses and we spend some time learning different techniques with the horses. Elaine is a pretty amazing instructor and a horsewoman, and so she teaches us something new every week.
So how does hippotherapy help veterans? Does PTSD or other injuries or whatever?
I think the biggest thing it helps with is because when you spend time with a horse and you learn the groundwork with them and you can kind of center yourself and focus on that animal, you're not spending that time focused on all your problems and all your difficulties and all the things that are going wrong. And when you can empathize with another creature, it puts you out of yourself a little bit. You know, it's real easy when you have a lot of medical issues and a lot of mental health issues and you're struggling with things to become extremely self-centered in it. And all you see is what's wrong with me, and I'll look at what I'm going through. And it gives you an opportunity to just kind of go to peace, you know, and you don't have to dwell on all of that anymore. And the traumas that you have had and the things that give you nightmares kind of go away for a little bit.
So is there a specific program for veterans coming back from Afghanistan or Iraq?
Well, I mean, the ranch isn't, we're still starting it out slowly just because we're basing it off of a program that they started down in Texas that went too quickly. And they got too many people and not enough horses and not enough time and not enough resources to work within it. And so we're trying to just bring people, there's about 15 of us that make it in there. I had some drive and been there for a couple of weeks just because of work. And so, you know, it's just a time to be with people that kind of get it, you know, that have been in the position you've been in, at least whether it was Vietnam or Iraq or Desert Storm. They know it's different, you know, they know you've been through something. And it's you relate differently than you do anywhere else.
They don't have to hold it on that. That was good. So we were at how the Veterans Program works.
Mm-hmm.
So are you working toward, I've heard that it's not certified yet?
We're working towards that. It's in the beginning stages and hoping to continue to grow, and we've gotten a lot more interest and a lot of information is getting finally put out there with different people so that we can start finding the veterans that would be interested in coming to it.
So, but you treat veterans now?
Well, not in a formal capacity. It's more of we as the first ones to start the group will be the mentors down the road. And so we're going through the program as how we will continue to bring people in. We'll go through the program.
So are you going to make an alliance with Veterans Hospital?
Yes, yes, that's what we're getting the word out to, you know, mental health there at the VA, and anybody that knows anybody that is a veteran, whether it's the VFW or, you know, word of mouth.
And I think I've told Mark and Patrick to contact United Veterans and Admiral Young. United Veterans Association is the American Legion, VFW, all the organizations tied in to a single organization.
Oh, right.
And Admiral Young is really a nice person, somebody that they ought to get to know.
Well, we got a few guys there, Vietnam era guys, that with a lot of connections through there that, you know, truthfully, I don't have a lot of connections, and so I probably couldn't name 2 veterans that I know well outside this room, really.
Okay. Could you give me, when did you start volunteering?
It would have been in July of 2016.
And were you at the beginning of the hippotherapy for veterans?
Yes, yeah. Well, for the veterans group, yes, I was there. We started it after I had been there for a few months. So we've been going about a year now, is how long we've kind of trickled it along.
So how does hippotherapy work, especially for veterans?
Well, it works by having a hands-on approach to horses. You spend time with the horses, you learn what their nature is and how your actions get reactions from them, and how it helps to kind of temper things, because you can't force a horse to do anything. You have to either convince them of it, which only works sometimes, or you learn to work within them. And part of learning to work with a horse helps you to learn to work with other people too, because you can't force people's hands. And it helps to teach patience and tolerance and kindness and to empathize. You know, if you can't empathize with another creature, you will never be happy.
Well, that was a good quote, really good. How did you find out about Promise Ranch?
Well, there was an incident in my backyard involving chickens, a fox, the neighbor's house, and a gun. And the neighbor's house ended up with a few holes in it, and I ended up in community service. And the fox got away, so that was the end of it. But none of the chickens got killed, so that was a good thing. And they give you a list of community service places, and when I looked through it, they were on the list, and I figured I'd go what I knew. And I knew horses, and I knew I needed to be outdoors and do something. And it was the best thing I ever did.
I think that's probably it. My parents would send us to my brother.
And it thought maybe that was better than when we set traps around for the fox. We did catch a fox, but we also caught a neighbor's dog, and that didn't go over well either. No. And then when animal control and everybody showed up, the 3 pigs in the backyard didn't go over well either.
So you're in an incorporated community?
No, just right over here in Glover.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
Incorporated into
Oh, yeah, totally,
so
yeah.
there's zoning restrictions on
Oh,
hog raising?
yeah, no, and livestock are not really thought of as a good thing in the neighborhood.
My parents used to live in Glover. What street did you live on?
Park Drive,
Park Drive?
just a little one right up off of Elm. It's right in between Elm and Douglas Fir.
They lived on Douglas Fir.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know what? The whole neighborhood everybody has chickens. I was listening to a rooster.
right?
Yeah, the roosters didn't go over well either. Those had to go. I was really quite good friends with Animal Control Dave there for a while. But I love it, you know, because I don't know where else around here that you can have backyards like they have. I mean, I have a huge backyard.
I never knew that any of that was taking place. That would not be when my folks were alive. The Glovers was nothing like that.
Oh.
Admit it.
Oh, well, I think some of it, you know, probably a lot of us are in complete violation of city codes. Because, yeah, there isn't actually a covenants there. There's just the city ordinances. And the city ordinance is a maximum of 6 animals. And you can only have a combination of, you're only supposed to have only 3 dogs. And so you could have 3 dogs and 3 chickens, or 3 dogs, a cat, and 2 chickens. But you can't have any more than 3 dogs and any more so many chickens. And it really boils down to just how tolerant and friendly your neighbors are.
Totally. So did you miss the fox and hit the house or something? Or?
I tripped, and I was headed out the door, and I was kind of going, and there was a stumble out the back door because I have neuropathy, and so my leg doesn't work right sometimes.
My ankles won't move.
Yeah, see, my hips just, you know, and so it was really quite fluid, and really I didn't realize that it even happened until several months later when the neighbors behind happened. It was spring, and they come out and they're like, "There's holes here in the side of the house."
So are you on Neurontin?
I was until I gained 30 pounds, and so I quit with that.
Oh, that's my excuse then.
That's it. Yes,
No, I'm kidding.
it is.
So you gained 30 and quit what?
The Neurontin, the gabapentin for the neuropathy. Yeah, it put 30 pounds on me,
I
and
take it 3 times a day. My weight hadn't changed, but I was already overweight. So.
well, I at least said that was my excuse for having gained the 30 pounds. Every time I move, the stress would come off, and working, I don't stop moving all day, so.
Okay, that's probably better for your neuropathy anyway.
It's, you know, I think some of it has gotten better. You know, staying active, you've got to keep moving. If you quit moving, you'll never get back up again. So.
I think that's it.
Oh.
Could you say your name?
Marjorie Bezdek.
And you're a Navy vet?
Yes, I'm a retired Navy nurse.
Could you explain what you did in the Navy?
I was a nurse. I worked probably everything but the information desk throughout my Navy career. But when I was on active duty, I was head nurse on an ENT floor, ear, nose, and throat. I also worked thoracic surgery. I worked OB/GYN, delivered a baby in there. Dirty surgery during Vietnam. Sick officers' quarters.
You never made it to Vietnam though, right?
No. It was winding down after about 1.5 years, and they weren't sending people over that much.
When I got out, there were 15,000 of us who got out the same day in Norfolk. And the doctor, we are all, well, they had more than one place, but the doctor, they made us drop trow. And the doctor said, is there any reason to hold the Navy accountable for any of your conditions? And not one person said, I have something I got in the Navy. So it was an interesting experience. So, when did you start volunteering at the Promise Ranch?
I started in May of 2012.
And what made you start volunteering?
I had retired from my job, and I wanted to get around horses and learn about horses. I started taking riding lessons at the same time at another facility, and I wanted to start working with horses, so I did that.
So you're one of the few people who's a volunteer and received treatment there?
Yeah.
So what was the treatment like?
6 months after I started volunteering, I was taking a horseback riding lesson, and the horse I was riding took off when I put him into a trot, and he got to the end of the arena and he swerved, and I went straight and landed on my hip and broke my hip. So they had to call an ambulance, and I was taken to a hospital and had surgery the next morning.
And what was the therapy like?
I never had hip pain. I started taking the therapy riding starting about 3 months after I fell. And the motion of the horse walking, it really helps, you know, loosen up the muscles and the tendons and everything in your leg. And so I never had a problem, and I think it helped me heal better. I did have a lot of pain down here because they put a prosthesis in, but that was in the bottom of my leg. And the only restrictions the doctor gave me was I have to mount from what they call the wrong side, and I needed to mount with the ramp because I couldn't do it from a block or the ground for a long time.
Now you can mount your horse from the left side now.
Actually, the horse I have now, I trained him for me to mount on the right, and that's where he naturally goes. And this leg is still not as strong as the other one, so it's hard for me to mount from the left. And I use a mounting block to get on. I don't mount from the ground. It's too much bend in that hip.
So you continue to ride? Mm-hmm. And what do you get out of riding a horse besides the therapy?
Well, let's see, I don't know how long it was after I decided I wanted to buy a horse. So I bought a horse, and he has taught me patience. He's taught me humility, and I just like to be around him. And in this past November, I moved him over to Promise Ranch to board him there, and he is now a therapy horse as well.
Does it take special training to become a therapy horse?
Yes, it does.
Can you explain what the special training is like?
Sure. Well, first of all, he's a trail horse, so he doesn't like to be in an indoor arena. He sees things differently than we do. Like, he doesn't like it if part of the sand in the arena is wet and another part is dry. They're two different colors, and that kind of is spooky to him. Plus, you have shadows in the arena. The other thing is, it's confusing for them to figure out, well, who am I supposed to be listening to? You have an instructor, you have somebody leading the horse, you also have two people walking on either side, usually if there's a person that could fall off, and they're not used to having people walking right close next to them. And also sometimes, you know, the client takes the reins and will direct them. And so they have to learn when they need to pay attention to who and when. And that's something they do. And then a lot of times they will do exercises with the client. For instance, they have a basketball net. And so to help their motor ability, they throw the basketball into the net, or they throw the ball to one of the instructor or one of the sidewalkers. And so the horse has to be able to accommodate these wayward balls, if you will. And also, sometimes they'll stop and they'll do this, so the horse has just got to zone out for a few minutes while the client is doing whatever exercises they need to be doing with the instructor.
So your horse has been trained?
Yeah, they put him through a 6-month program of training, and he's now got 2 clients. They're more independent riders, so they can let him off the lead rope and they can guide him themselves. He's not, they're not severely disabled at this point.
And are you, when you volunteer, do you walk the horses or?
Not anymore, not since I broke my leg. I haven't been sidewalking or leading the horses. I do the veterans program. They have a weekly program, horsemanship program. So we sit around and talk with veterans or with ourselves, and then we take some horses and let them loose in the arena, usually 2, 3 maybe, and do horse observations or groom them or lead them around over obstacles, things like that.
Now, are these veterans who are not members of the Promise Ranch staff?
We have a facilitator whose parents were, or father was a vet, and the initial group of us, this started a year ago in September, and the ones that started were either veterans, or we have one volunteer who has a Vietnam veteran husband. And so all the veterans are either volunteers, they started out as all volunteers, except for this one husband who was married to a volunteer. So we were all volunteers and veterans with Promise Ranch.
Now, how can horse therapy help a veteran?
Many ways, just like it helps any kind of people. It can. The big thing that they're looking at is people with traumatic brain injuries or a PTSD can help them. Horses are very similar to people that have PTSD because they don't usually remember bad things, but they can remember serious bad things. And they don't have, you know, the executive part of the brain like we do. And so they are very reactive. And people that have PTSD are also very reactive if they have the right trigger.
And so the horse helps them overcome that? Mm-hmm. And how does that happen? Does the veteran bond with the horse or whatever?
Yeah, people bond with the horses. Usually they'll, the idea is to pick a horse that might be, at least for the clients over there, the horse, it'll work much better if you have a horse that the horse kind of likes you and you kind of like the horse. With the veterans program, like I said, we usually have 2 or 3 running around that we all kind of work with. And so we don't really bond with them. And plus the facilitator brings a couple of her private animals over for just a change of pace. And because the Promise Ranch horses are all they're older, and so they're much calmer, whereas Elaine's horses and ponies are a little bit more mobile, shall we say.
They haven't been broken in?
No, they're broken in and they've been ridden, but they're not designated therapy horses. And so she used to do a lot of work with juvenile having problems. And the horses really worked really well with those kids too.
Now, when you were volunteering, were you working with children also?
Mm-hmm. I've worked with quite an age span.
So how does horse hippotherapy work with children versus adults?
I think it kind of depends upon what their abilities are. I think you can maybe do more with a younger person. I remember we had an 8-year-old, and when we first came, I think he had cerebral palsy, and he didn't have the muscle strength to sit up. So he would lay down over the back of the horse. And then over a year or so's time, he was able to sit up in the saddle, and he had some leg braces by this time that they fitted for him. You know, adults, we have an autistic fellow that's in his 40s, I believe, and what the hippotherapy has done for him is it's helped with his balance. They don't ride him in a saddle, they ride him with a pad and a search ankle, which is basically a cinch with handlebars on it. And he's got to pay attention. I found out recently people with autism have problems. They're not balance problems per se, but it's issues of proprioception. And so horses can really help that, especially if they don't have their feet in stirrups.
Hi, Kitty. My son is at the
If you let somebody know that you thought you had issues, you know, you'd get out of the service, they'd kick you out, and they didn't want to go. And it's like, I think it's also, it's very hard for some people, especially people that have been in combat and whatever, to admit to having some difficulty.
And I have a high school friend who actually helped encourage my son to go into medicine, who is a professor at CU, psychiatry professor, but he practices out of the VA like my son practices out of the VA. And
Was this recent?
yeah, I haven't seen Tom in a year or so, but he was still doing this.
What's the name of the psychiatrist?
Tom Beresford.
The name is familiar, because I worked at CU for about 6 years.
Yeah, Tom, but he's always been out of the VA.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he has an office.
Ah,
And my son has an office at UCLA, but he doesn't use it. But where we're with children, what other special conditions that hippotherapy helps besides autism and I can't say.
cerebral palsy?
Yeah.
You know, when I first started at Promise Ranch, we had a lady, it was an adult, and she had Alzheimer's. And she had been a show riding person in her younger years, so her muscle memory was there, so she could ride, but she couldn't remember how to hold the reins on the horse because it was a fine motor thing. Her gross motor, she remembered, but then she got sicker and she no longer came. We've had a young girl, she's on oxygen continuously, and she was born very premature, very low birth weight. And so I guess when she first started, she wasn't talking very much. And that's also true with autistic people, is the riding of the horse somehow encourages them to speak. And now she babbles like a little brook.
So is this from trying to talk to the horse?
The way I understand it, has something to do with the motion. The motion encourages speak, especially if they put the child on sideways. Seems to really encourage or increase their, it's not that they can't speak, it's just they don't, or maybe it's attention deficit. We have a lot of attention deficit kids too. I don't know. Those are, to me, the biggest group. We have a few Down's patients, Down syndrome people, and but with the autistic people, it's really funny because they don't like change. So you have to make sure everything is like the same, in a way.
I'm interviewing an autistic child sometime next week, I hope.
Oh, okay.
And the parents are a little worried about me coming in and interrupting the normal flow of things.
How old is the child?
8, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So did your nurse's training help you with this?
You know, when I went to school in the 60s and late 60s, and autism wasn't around that much. I have a brother that's on the autism spectrum. We didn't know it until he was an adult. They didn't diagnose it. We just knew he was different.
Well, I think I knew kids in high school and junior high
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
but they didn't communicate very well.
Yeah, he had a lot of stereotypies. He used to rock a lot to where the spring in the couch popped out because he bopped it so much, or he would hit his head against the wall a lot when he got frustrated. And we've got the one gentleman I was talking about, a lot of times will start hitting himself.
Well, autism is a spectrum, right?
Yeah, right, it's a huge spectrum.
And things that might be attention deficit could be autism or vice versa. I think I've read that.
I think they're two separate things, and they might be, you know, at the same time. I know we've had people that have cerebral palsy and autism, I believe. So,
So that's really difficult.
yeah. But I think the horses, I think, really help the kids, really help adults as well, but the kids, you see it more of a change because they're growing and, you know, you can still kind of form things. You know what I mean?
So how did you find out about Promise Ranch?
I knew about therapy ranches, so I just looked on the internet to find one that had a veterans program. And at that time, they were trying to get one started. They didn't do it for a couple of years, but that's, and also she was, I think I sent emails to 2 or 3 to inquire, and the director at the time got back to me in about 45 minutes, and I never heard from the other 2.
I kind of want somebody from the ranch to get to know Dick Young, because United Veterans could be a great place for referrals.
Yeah,
Because they represent the American Legion,
Yeah.
VFW.
yeah. I don't know. What I would like to see more of is younger Afghanistan and Iraqi veterans. And most of the people that we have are older, more Vietnam era or Desert Storm era. And I have been to some of the meetings, the Navy people that Dick gets together with, and they're all older people as well.
Now, he's older than dirt,
I know.
but he's a really nice person for
Yeah, yeah. I have a nurse friend who has been working with another group, and so as soon as we get more materials available, I'm going to get them over to her, and so she can network with her.
And every year, the United Veterans has a big convention
Oh, okay.
with politicos and, you know, members of
Yeah.
all the organizations. So that might be worth trying to put up a rack with brochures
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, we're getting together. The Veterans Program is doing its own brochure and getting that together. We got a flyer now, and I don't know what Promise Ranch is going to have, but
It's up
we,
to Dennis and me, so.
yeah. And one of the veterans that's in our veteran program already is really active with the Rotary Club, and he's also active with, maybe it's VFW, I'm not sure.
Excuse me.
Do you need water?
Yeah, I could use some water.
Okay. And I worked at Denver General again, and I retired from them. I was on the telephone advice line.
Oh, suicide prevention.
No, nurse advice.
Oh, okay.
They have a nurse advice line,
Am I, put this down now. Turn.
especially now, yeah.
Yeah, a friend of hers is now in University Hospital,
Yeah,
and he never sees a patient, he just looks at their cells.
yeah.
But he was a
Pathologist,
really
like,
colorful
yeah.
person. He was an attorney for 30 years,
Whoa.
gave up on that and went to med school, and now he's a cancer researcher.
And he's over at CU?
Yeah,
Hmm.
they hired him away from UCLA.
What's his name?
Yorshaw, Michael Yorshaw,
Okay.
he just started over there 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But he comes over to our house for New Year's and whatever, since we met him in LA. And he has the greatest stories to tell.
Yeah, we all have great stories to tell.
So anyway, I think I have all of this. I think I asked you, did your medical training help? How does medical training help as a volunteer with these children and adults?
Well, when I first started, I didn't want to be the horse leader as much. I always wanted to do the sidewalking because I wanted the patient care kind of aspect, but be around the horses as well. You know, most of the people that are instructors at Promise Ranch, you know, have had a lot of training through the PATH, the association they have to be certified with. So they're pretty, but we had one time, I don't know if she had a seizure or if she had a panic attack or whatever she was, we had to get her off that horse fast. And actually, you know, the horse did really well. And I think they learn, you know, to, what do you want to call it? They just, you know, that's why it's not an easy job being a therapy horse. When I first started volunteering there, the lady who was director before Mark said, therapy horses only last about 2.5 years and then they get burned out. The horses that are currently there are the same ones that were there in 2012. Carol has done an outstanding job with those horses.
You know, is this sort of work good for the horse too?
It's demanding work. You know, it can be very highly charged and very draining for them, especially if you have, because some of the clients are in wheelchairs and they have to have the Rotary Club donated this lift that, you know, comes over the horse. You put the client in it and you lift it up and it drops them on the horse. And also they're put in like a squeeze to get between the ramp and the other side where the other volunteer's standing to help the kid get on the horse. That's kind of scary for a horse. They have to be trained to do that. And then to have this thing, because horses can't see what's on top of their back very well. So what jumps on top of their back? Mountain lions. So you got to get them used to having that lift come by and put the kids on it. And so, yeah, they're a very special breed. And usually there are horses that are older that have seen it and done it, you know, and so they tend to be much more calmer. My horse is 15 and he's young for therapy horses. You would never put a 7 or 8 or 9-year-old horse into a therapy program unless it's very outstanding. But
did you have an interest in horses before?
I have loved horses all my life. There's a picture over here, was given to me for Christmas by my mom when I was 14. My mother's father was killed because he was kicked by a horse, and my mother knew I liked horses, but she never encouraged it. And then when I started nursing, I always wanted to be in big hospitals, big teaching hospitals. And so it just never, but when I would go on vacation, if I went to a national park, they had a stable, I would take a horseback ride, or I would take a weekend horse camping trip, you know, periodically. But a lot of times when you do that, it's basically you're a passenger, you're not a rider. So I just started taking lessons when I retired, started volunteering, and then after I broke my hip, decided I needed more time with horses, so I got my own. And I'm fortunate that he's being trained to be a therapy horse. That's him right there.
Have you bonded with your horse?
It took a while. You know, my horses have like a pecking order. You have your alpha horse and your alpha mare and this stuff. And my guy tends to be at the bottom of the totem pole. And so he needs people that inspire confidence. Well, if I was much kind of an advanced beginner when I got him, and so we've kind of worked out the kinks to the point now where he got sick this summer on a trail ride. We think he had a small colic, and which can be very serious. And since that time, I really feel that I've bonded with him.
Good. Can you think of anything, Dennis?
No, very good points.
Okay, I need to take some still pictures of you. Okay, I'm running. So, could you give us your names and where you live?
I'm Blair Wiles, and this is my son Daniel Wiles, and we live in Franktown, Colorado.
And I'm Valerie Wiles.
And you were telling us earlier that you were among the first riders in Promise Ranch. Could you tell us that story?
Yeah, Daniel, we were driving by Promise Ranch just prior to its opening on Democrat Road. A pediatrician, retired pediatrician Ann Moore was just getting it started, and we saw the signs, and so we stopped in and talked to her, and she had wanted Daniel to come ride there, and so shortly after that, Daniel started riding. So Daniel was the first rider at Promise Ranch, and there was another little girl, Rory, that started riding about the same time. And then subsequently, Ann had invited me to be on the board about a year and a half after Daniel started riding there. So that's when I joined the board of directors for Promise Ranch.
And you're both volunteers also?
Off and on. I am. Blair mainly volunteers.
And so your profession is a firefighter?
Yeah, I work for Denver Fire Department for 24 years now.
And,
I'm a licensed massage therapist and I work for adults and children with disabilities.
oh, okay, so this was a natural choice for you.
Yes.
So how has Promise Ranch helped Daniel?
When Daniel first started to ride at Promise Ranch, he really couldn't even get on the horse without, several hands. It took about 3, sometimes even 4 people to get him up on the horse. He had a lot of self-injurious behaviors, which is kind of what you see going on right now. Daniel wasn't sleeping at night. We were going through some really tough times with him, but since he's been riding at Promise Ranch, he's improved over the last 6 years, and his behaviors are much better. He's in a much better place now. He loves to ride. He's actually making decisions now while he's on the horse. He can, with his instructor, he can actually make the decision to walk on through some of the tools that they use down there, and helps with his balance, his mobility. Yeah, that's probably his favorite thing to do, is to ride Buka at Promise Ranch. They will spend about 10 minutes after each session where Daniel will be sitting and Buka will walk up to him, and it's a real quiet, peaceful time that the instructor allows Buka to just interact with Daniel. And excuse me. The instructor was just telling me the other day that it's actually been Buka has begun to relate more to Daniel recently, and so yeah, it's been a good thing.
And Daniel's been able to relate more with Buka.
Man,
Would you like to get a glass of water?
oh, I think it'll be fine.
Okay.
I might have to. Yeah, let me go grab a glass.
Because we might want to start this over.
You see all this. I know. We can't have so much of that.
Deformities, I guess you would call them, where the individual could actually get more injured in horseback. And then seizures are, if an individual has seizures, we have to take a closer look at that.
Okay.
So,
So had you heard about hippotherapy before you found Promise Ranch?
Yes, we have. And Daniel has ridden it at other places beforehand. Promise Ranch was closer for us and easier to access for hippotherapy for Daniel.
And you have your own horse?
Yes.
And does Daniel ride that horse? Oh, I need to have you not say yes, but give me a statement.
Yes, Daniel has his own horse. And he used to ride that horse, and the horse is just getting a little bit older and is not able to give Daniel rides anymore.
We got the horse, Chance, donated after Daniel started riding at Promise Ranch because we saw the value in it. So a friend of ours was looking to get rid of a horse, and so it worked out. So Chance came to our house, and Daniel rode Chance for about 5 years here at home. So we actually had a therapist come into the house, and we'd go out there and we'd ride here at the house. So it was a huge benefit.
Can you explain again how hippotherapy has helped Daniel?
Thank you. So Daniel, when he, I think hippotherapy has been beneficial to Daniel just in the ability, in his ability to continue to, make decisions. That's always been a big challenge for us, and Daniel making decisions. And so it's helped him, it's given him a mode, a preferred activity that he can learn that he does have some control, like starting the horse from a stop position. And it's helped with his muscle development, walking and muscle tone. And I think just the relationship, there's something that you just can't describe. The relationship between the horse and the individual, there's a magic that happens that just can't be described, and it can only be seen. And I've witnessed it so many times, and it typically will bring tears to the eyes of people who are able to witness that. It's just something that can't be explained. That's pretty amazing. We call it the magic that happens, but there's definitely a communication between the horses and these individuals that happens.
I think when Daniel rides his horse, Buka, I feel like it gives Daniel a sense of freedom. Daniel's able to sit up taller, and he has some control and command, and likes to ride without holding on, will ride with his arms out. And it does make him happy to ride. He knows when he's at the ranch. He knows what's at the ranch, and he knows that means it's time to ride, and so he does get excited to ride. There's times where Blair's been over there at the ranch to do some work, and Daniel's with him, and Daniel's like, well, are we not going to ride? And can get upset because he knows that that's where he rides, and he enjoys riding Buka at the ranch.
Do other patients ride Buka also?
Yes, there are many other patients that ride Buka.
Can you think of anything else?
Rockstar job. You guys made some good comments that I absorb, I can understand. The horse relationship, the connections that's there with an animal, and I just think you guys did a great job making some good comments. Thank you. I mean, I'm pleased. Wow.
Here we go again. So could you go through the history of starting at Promise Ranch and a horse named as Buka?
Mm-hmm.
And give us the approximate date that you started therapy at Promise Ranch.
So in 2009, we were in the process of actually moving, and we're driving by, noticed a sign up at Promise Ranch for therapeutic riding, and Daniel had done some therapeutic riding in the past when he was younger. So we stopped in there, and a retired pediatrician, Dr. Ann Moore, had just started Promise Ranch. She was just getting things going. We went in and started talking to her. She was able to meet Daniel. She really wanted Daniel to ride there. So Daniel was actually one of the first riders there. That was in 2009. And then in 2011, I was asked to be on the board of directors, and so I've been on the board of directors of Promise Ranch since then. Daniel rides Buka at Promise Ranch. He's pretty much always ridden Buka. He's does really good. He enjoys it. He was unable to get on the horse by himself. Took usually 3 to 4 people to get him on Buka. And now today he actually will almost independently, with very little assistance, get on Buka. He can tell Buka to walk on. He uses a ring that's on the front of the saddle, and he'll actually pull up on the ring when he wants to walk on, which is a huge improvement. So, yeah.
And Daniel's bonded with the horse?
Yeah.
Yes, there's usually at the end of the session there's about a 10-minute period of time where Buka and Daniel will interact, and that's a lot of the horses will do that with the individuals that they work with. And it's usually a real quiet, peaceful time, and you can really tell that there's some good bonding going on. The horses just seem to understand individuals like Daniel to a level that we just don't get, and it's almost like they communicate. And
When Buka used to come up to Daniel, Daniel would push Buka's head away. And now just recently, Buka comes up to Daniel towards the end of the session, and he doesn't push her away anymore. He kind of just lets her just be, and they just kind of look at each other and just interact in their own ways. So he's gotten much better with Buka being up close.
Now, during the session lasts how long?
Session lasts an hour.
An hour. And do you notice a change in Daniel's behavior after that?
yes, yeah, he really enjoys riding, and he knows there's very few times where he has a hard time or has behaviors or meltdowns when he's riding. And usually when he comes home after riding, his body is a little bit looser. It really helps with his digestion and with his gut, his bowels, everything.
I'm trying to be quiet.
There's a huge benefit to Daniel and riding. Daniel likes to eat. He eats 24/7.
So you sort of found Promise Ranch by accident?
Yes.
Now, do you refer other people to
Yes.
Promise Ranch in your job?
Yes.
Could you tell me that?
So, there's several clients that are looking for a therapeutic riding program, and there's such a big waiting list in some places. So I do refer them to Promise Ranch and give them the name of the person they need to contact to ride there. And so they just go ahead and they contact, I believe, Sharon to ride over there.
And you're an occupational therapist, you said?
I'm a massage therapist.
Massage therapist.
Yes.
Where's your practice?
I work here at home and also travel, so I go and I work at their homes.
So, how many people do you think you've referred to Promise Ranch?
Well, so far I have 8 clients, and so I've referred pretty much all 8.
So, could you give me a definition of hippotherapy?
I'll let Blair answer that one.
Hippotherapy is
Just hold.
it's basically occupational, physical, or speech therapy that is utilizing the horse as a tool. And the hippo means in Greek horse, so a lot of people get confused by that. But that's basically what it is. It's using the horse as a tool to provide a medical type therapy, being occupational, physical, or speech. Typically, an occupational therapist would provide that, but there's been a lot of studies that have shown the benefits, improvements in speech in individuals through hippotherapy. So there are some speech therapists out there who are able to do that too. The movement of the horse is scientifically proven to help with mobility, muscle tightness, in individuals when they're riding. So.
Did you have physicians referring to, people to Promise Ranch also?
Yeah, so we, physicians, is that what you guys, yeah, so we, through our application process, we do have a requirement that a medical doctor sign off and approve an individual to receive hippotherapy, because there are some contraindications to being able to get that therapy. So there's always a doctor that signs off on it, and then each individual also has to have a letter on file. It can be from a physician, it can be from a therapist that is for that individual to receive hippotherapy. So it's their plan of care, what they would be working on.
So there are some people who wouldn't be eligible for this type of therapy.
Yeah, there's some of the contraindications would be mainly like spinal issues, and in some kids with developmental disabilities there are some spinal cord type everything.
That's
And
more than we realize.
More than we realize. So then one of the things that Daniel really tends to get irritated is when we're sitting in an environment like this and we're talking, and it's not, the attention is not focused on him, and we're having these conversations, whether it be conversations or interviews or whatever it is, but he has laughed appropriately at jokes, and we're like, what?
Right.
Really? He's beginning to communicate in ways more and more recently that, telling us that he's hungry by getting up off the couch and walking to the table, which is typically what he does, is he hits himself.
Yeah.
And if you don't intervene, he will continue to get worse and worse and worse he's black eyes, bloody noses.
Yes, that's you.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yes, he understands. I think
Okay, that's what I was-
and that's one of the hardest things too, is as a parent, is we tend to talk about our kids and not to our kids.
Yeah.
And
he likes to be talked to.
he likes to be talked to, and so we try to do that. He's got some caregivers that do really good at talking to him.
Yeah, when he's writing, does he express any joy?
Yes.
When he's writing and he likes the arms out, for
Yes.
that freedom instead of fear. Yeah.
Yeah, and he does do that. He'll do that sometimes.
A boy the other day was down there, and I said,
Well, what's that? Did you hear that? Did you heard that?
and his name was King. Do you know a little boy named King?
King?
King. His real name is Kingdom, I guess. King.
I don't
They're out
know.
of Aurora. But I haven't seen Daniel ride yet, and I'm looking forward to that. But King was out there, and he's going around the arena, and he was, of course, doing the side saddle and backwards and everything else. He was out of his gourd with happiness and laughing. One thing I noticed that you guys know life better than me on this, every time he'd come around by the bench there, and his mom was there, and waved and said his name, he just didn't even see her there. He didn't
Yep.
express anything. The horse would turn, and he'd start going into the magic again of being on that horse.
Yeah.
It's beautiful
Yeah.
what that horse was doing for him. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. There's just countless stories. I mean, I've seen some pretty cool stuff. To see Amy, and I know you're going to see Amy this week, to see Amy and her horse interact is probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, I watched her in the arena.
Yesterday.
And Carol will do the same thing with Daniel. Carol's really an amazing person.
That's what I'm gathering.
But she has such an understanding.
You need to stop. No more.
But to see Amy interact
No
with
more.
Nikki
Stop.
is really, because Amy, she will get emotional, and you can even tell Nikki's getting emotional. Her horse, and it's just like, wow, there's really something happening here.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's why I liked when you described that connection of magic,
Yeah.
of whatever there is. Nobody's ever explained it, but I was such a horseman over the years. I had one saddle horse. That was, well, I get teased about it concerning what came first in my life, who was most important, and it was that horse, and I had a connection beyond, I can't describe it. But even when he died in a field up the road here, and I got notified in Denver at a business meeting, and I was all dressed up, and I was meeting with the, well, that's beside the point, but a very highfalutin businessman, and I just got that call and ran out of that office, drove out here to Flitwood Road, it was on Flitwood Road, and found that horse laying in the field. He had been kicked the night before, broke his hip and
Oh,
everything.
no.
But they called me and said that he's in pain, the vet's gonna put him down. I said, no, I get 1 hour alone, so everybody leave. So I sat out in that field, that big horse's head on my lap,
Yes.
and
Wow.
cried like a baby.
Yep.
We did that. We had to put one down and cried like a baby.
It's really something.
And I think we only had that horse for about
Couple years.
3-4 years.
Spirit.
New Spirit.
Yeah, we had Spirit and Chance were given to us the same. They came to us the same day from two different owners, and it just worked out that way. Spirit was an old swayback, so we would put Hannah on him because she was little then, but
Yeah.
nobody else would ride him. But he was a companion to Chance, and Chance came. He was the low horse in the field. He was with a stallion, and so he was always being picked on. And when he came here. And it was actually at another house, and him and Spirit met for the first time, and it was almost like Chance said, I'm going to be the boss
For once.
and Spirit was like, I don't care, you can be the boss, and I'll just hang out with you. And they were just instantly bonded, and they did. They were perfect fit together. Chance was perfect with Daniel.
That's why with that bonding that we're talking about, when I had the Belgian draft horses out at my ranch in Kiowa, to see those teams of when they become a team and they stay a team, and I would holler them in every evening to go to their stalls, and they'd be head tied, and they'd come in, and each one knew the stall to go with, but they were such a bonded team that you didn't dare split them up.
Right.
They just, again, it's some of that magic of how that gets formed.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if Mark shared it with either of you guys or not, but I wrote a story about Buka and Daniel.
Yes, I read it.
Did you read it? Yeah. And that was one of the first, because Ann asked me to, she said it was like, he had been riding there for, maybe a year and a half. We were doing a horse show, kind of like the fall show like we did the other day, and she said, hey, can you write something about what it means to you, And so that was one of the first things I wrote.
I
But
loved it. Yeah, I read it. I read that. Yeah.
that's always been something, that's like the best way I can describe it, It's so.
No.
I think we got it.